Despite the barrier of species and languages, humans have understood animals without needing words. This emotional bond is often gone unnoticed, but there are times when even our beloved pets don't hesitate to show their emotions. Here are a few stories where our loved animals and their love for us was put on display. Little girls and horses have an unbreakable bond. Their formative years are shaped by an incredibly important emotional bond. Unfortunately, this girl was forced to sell her barrel racer 4 years ago. She didn't want to sell him, but she understood that times were tough. The parents were just as heartbroken and promised themselves that they'd get Spook the horse back whenever they could. Fast forward to this day in the future, and the girl's parents had already bought Spook back. They were going to surprise her by reuniting the two. The parents didn't tell her anything and just gave her a few note cards to hold in front of the camera. When she looked behind her, Spook was standing right there. She ran to him and refused to let him go. Now that is a friendship that's never going to die. Dogs never forget their loved ones. So when this injured dog went to the same spot every day, the neighbors realized there was something going on. The neighbors realized he would go to a wrecked house and bark for hours at a time. After some investigation and questioning, the neighbors found out that an elderly couple used to live in the plot where the dog makes a fuss. Unfortunately, the owner was severely injured with second-degree burns in a fire that burned down the whole house. The neighbors made it their goal to reunite the two lost and sad souls. The owner was stuck in the hospital because of the extra attention he needed. That was also why he couldn't meet his best friend. After much searching, they found out where the owner was staying. Finally, they arranged a meetup for the long-lost friends. At first, they familiarized the dog with his owner's voice through a video call, so he felt comfortable with the temporary caretakers. Even the dog was injured and needed some tending to. After all of the necessary measures were taken, the two were reunited in the most emotional way possible. Canines might look scary, but they're very sensitive creatures. This family adopted a very traumatized dog a long time ago, but he was a very scared soul and refused to interact with anyone. They tried everything, but one day he ran away. It had been 8 years since he ran away, when one of the family members started to notice some movement and a hole at the back of their house. One of the family members suspected that it might be their dog that ran away, after seeing a little dog looking for food scraps at night. Finally, they called a few rescuers. The process of getting him out was so long that it took months, and a telescope camera, because the hole was as big as someone's palm. The anxious little dog Panadol rarely ever comes out of there and barely even eats. The rescuers had to block one end of the hole so they could catch the little pup from the other side. This emotional and unusual reunion hopefully gives Panadol the confidence he needs to live with his family again. Jimmy the dog had a lot of complications and major issues with his heart and lungs, but a doctor adopted him and documented his journey. The doctor found this poor dog after he was injured in a car accident. Jimmy was a stray back then, and would be seen covered in dirt and barely able to move since his back legs were paralyzed. He decided to adopt Jimmy, and not just that, but also decided to help him walk. He modified a wheelchair just so Jimmy could run around again, and now they're practically inseparable. He's living his best life and running around just like his other doggy friends. One thoughtful soul can do so much. So, what's stopping you from adopting? The American Kennel Club estimates that about 2 million dogs get stolen every year. Unfortunately, Cassie's dog was one of them. In 2013, someone stole her dog right from the front yard. The dog wasn't alone there. She had 3 puppies with her too. After a series of raids by the RSPCA, Cassie found her dog and the puppies after 8 years. When the stolen dog was reunited with her owners, she remembered them like she had just met them yesterday. As for the puppies, they were sent to good homes. The owners were so overjoyed that they started crying on the ground.
Cassie!
Raccoons like to keep their offspring hidden and safe from the world, which means they find the strangest places to give birth. Usually, it's no problem, until those helpless souls get stuck inside. a family realized that there was something fishy going on in their walls, since they would always hear scratching noises. Instead of getting exterminators, they called over wildlife control to help reduce this big family of raccoons. After hours of detecting and cutting walls, they managed to rescue the cutest little raccoons. Wolves might be aggressive, but with the right owners, they can be tamed and befriended with ease. Anta here spent a whole lot of time socializing with these friendly animals, since many others were too scared to do it. But she had no problem doing it. For 2 years, she spent most of her time with her, but due to difficult circumstances, she had to leave the polar zoo for about 2 months only. When she returned, this was their reaction. Look at how happy they are to see her. When it comes to emergencies, not everyone can act quickly. And when it comes to animal emergencies, most people know even less. This poor girl's senior dog was on the verge of dying, and the little girl couldn't think straight because her beloved best friend's heart had stopped. Nothing seemed to be working either. But fate has a weird way of working. A man who was walking by noticed the hysterical girl and offered to help. Thankfully, he knew how to give CPR, and the proper way too. He tried to jumpstart the heart slowly and checked if the dog's throat was clear. After a few tries, it was almost like a miracle had occurred. The dog started to breathe, and all was right in the world.
Good boy, Sugar! Good boy!
People might keep a bird or two as their pets, but this family took it upon themselves to raise an actual generation of pigeons for about 74 years. Birds are generally nomads and tend to move around a lot. But when Bird Dad calls out for them, they all fly back home. Before him, his father took care of the pigeons, and he has his own special pigeon that follows him everywhere. The grandfather left his home country during the war, and the only companion he had at that time was a pigeon that stuck with him all the time. He was sad about the fact that a bird could go home, but he couldn't, so he attached a note to the pigeon in hopes that his daughter-in-law would get the note. How sweet is that? Spaying or getting your dog neutered is always a relatively easy task to do. It's a small operation, but Misha, the dog here, who came from an unwanted litter of puppies, had a harder time reacting to the surgery. Her body felt so weird to her after getting a dose of anesthesia that she couldn't stop crying. Unfortunately, her owners weren't around either to comfort her, so the vet himself took the responsibility of taking care of this precious pooch. Watch how he holds the little pup all bubbled up like a baby. After a while, she calms down and stops crying. Is there anything more heartfelt in the world than this? Alright, comment down below which of these animal stories you enjoyed the most. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Trend Joint. We'll see you in the next one.